9:17 a.m. We're coming to you about 12 hours later than we usually do. It's the summertime, man. We are flexible. Brandon, how are you doing on this Monday morning? Feeling good about the start of the week?
Yeah, doing good. It's kind of hitting the ground running, getting a late start to, I guess, the work week when it comes to putting together print paper. The work week starts on Wednesday or Thursday, so I'm kind of having to get into a sprint coming off the bench. But otherwise, yeah, it's hopefully it's going to be a productive week. How about you?
Yeah, that's my plan as well. We were talking before we started recording. I've got to work on some stuff for school. Like we go back to in service in a couple weeks, and so there's just a lot of work to be done between now and then. So that is after we get done with this. My plan is to go over to Turntable and take my school computer and work until the battery runs out. That's my plan. Like I won't get done with everything I need to get done today, but that sort of gives me a boundary to stop. Like once the battery dies, then I'm done. So.
Just hopefully you save everything before it dies.
Yes, I do all of my stuff on like a cloud program. So either Google Drive or whatever the Microsoft. I hate Microsoft so bad, but that's just what our school system purchased. I think everybody does because it's so cheap, but I hate it. But I'll do it whatever it is on that outlet. I don't know what it's called, but that's where I do most of my work.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into last week's edition of the Jackson Post. We got 5 stories. You gonna say something?
Well, I was just going to say, when did you get your copy? Because I guess it was the week before we had. I'll go ahead and say the reason why I'm hitting the ground running today is because I was out of town last week, and last Monday as we were driving down to Florida. Fortunately, my wife and I were in separate vehicles because we have so many kids, and Enterprise won't rent a bus. But or else she would have gotten mad about how much time I spent of the drive on the phone with people calling, "Hey, I haven't got my paper yet." So when did you get your paper last week?
Last week, I think I got it on like a Tuesday. I'm pretty sure. Because I didn't want to text. I knew you were out of town, so I was like, I'm not going to text, not bother him.
Yeah.
And what we used for the podcast, I guess, was I just used whatever was online because I have access to online, the PDF copy. So I just, download that. So that's actually a good time to mention this. Multiple subscription options. I know a lot of people like the physical paper in their hand, but if it's delayed like it was because of 4th of July or whatever caused that.
That's mine, yeah.
Yeah, you still have access to the PDF file. Honestly, it's exactly the same, except it's just on a screen.
And lesson learned, when there is a national holiday on a Friday, which is when our paper usually prints, then a couple weeks out, I'll talk to my people and be like, hey, we need to adjust the schedule somewhat. So because it really, I really appreciate how much people, if they don't have the print product in their hand by Monday, I appreciate how there's like, hey, what's going on? Why don't I have my paper? So,
well, the good news is the most recent edition came out on time because I don't clean my mailbox out every day because I get just a lot of junk, and so I'll kind of look at it and then I'll just put it back in there and walk in the house. But these 2 copies came close enough to where they were both in my mailbox at the same time.
There we go.
Yeah, I never took it out. Anyway,
you're not the first that's gotten 2 copies at the same time, but okay.
Here's the rundown from the July 10th edition of the Jackson Post. We are going to discuss CrossFit honoring the memory of Tim Flanagan. We are going to discuss the Melissa STEM Innovation Center. I think that's an interesting story because Melissa's was one of the schools closed in 2016, Division 2020, and like JCM, where I'm employed, it is now reopened and seems to be thriving. So, man, as things like that continue to happen, it really, I feel like, kind of casts a poor reflection on whatever those decisions that were made 10 years ago. The closing, the open, that's a lot of money spent there for all that. But Anyway, I digress. Chief Tom Corley receives a state honor. We'll discuss that. Spring Creek celebrates July 4th. I think last time we kind of talked about my experience at Pine Tree Street for their July 4th. You get to share what Spring Creek is like on July 4th. And then sort of starting to get in the mindset of high school sports because football practice starts up in a couple weeks.
Actually, it
New
started last week.
what
Well,
for real?
not like full fall
Not like
camp,
full pads, right?
right? But they came back from dead period last Monday, and typically when you come back from dead period, which is 2 weeks, where the TSSAA says
Mhm.
everybody's got to shut down, that's generally regarded as okay. We're not on the final stretch toward the football season, but we're coming out of the turn.
Yep. Getting excited. I know you love it. I know you love high school football around here. You getting excited?
I'm yeah.
Okay. I got you. And we're going to talk about new district alignments for local high school sports, and not just football. Soccer, I believe, is affected by this. Volleyball, possibly.
Every sport was realigned. We just covered
Mhm.
fall sports last week, and then this week I'll do a story about basketball season.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get to it. Brandon, you wrote a piece on CrossFit, and if for people who aren't familiar with CrossFit, it's a gym, but it's also like a workout movement. It's sort
It's
of
an
nationwide.
experience.
It's an experience, and it is super intense. As someone who has participated in it a long time ago, I didn't realize it was still going, and apparently it is. The local Jackson CrossFit, I don't know if you call it a gym, group, club,
I call it a
they
gym. I
honored
mean, they've got
a
they've
gym.
got a facility that they meet at, and they do a lot of their, if their work isn't in that building, it originates from that building. Like what we're about to talk about, there's a 1.5 mile run where they ran out and then came back.
Yeah. So this particular workout, I guess, was to honor the memory of a fallen soldier on Independence Day. And you went. Did you observe sort of what all this involved, and what
I
did you
did.
come away with?
I did. And this was a fun assignment for me just because, and you may be hearing some background noise. A couple of my girls are trying to head out for one of their summer camps and moving my phone in the process. Uh, but I'm interested in doing stories about like how different gyms that aren't just your typical come in, lift, push around some weights, maybe get on a treadmill or an elliptical, then go home. I'm interested in kind of what they do. um, so I've been wanting to kind of do a story with CrossFit for a while. And so I was told about what they were doing. And Tim Flanagan, Gabe, you may be familiar with the story. If you've been around for 20 years around here, I imagine that you would be familiar with the story. Somehow, I've been here for 17 years and I hadn't heard about him until last week. But apparently on July 2nd, 2000. Go ahead. My wife's about to get some ice out of the ice machine. But apparently on July 2nd, 2006, I think, he was Tim Flanagan was a soldier from Medina who was stationed in Afghanistan. He was a pilot, and they lifted off from their base in Afghanistan on I think they said it was a Sunday night, July 2nd. Not long after liftoff, something happened, and the plane went down. And I didn't get the details. His sister was there, and she kind of talked a little bit about it. She and her husband, Tim's brother-in-law, they were both great to talk about it and stuff. But I didn't get the details. But apparently, somehow, Flanagan saved other people who were in the helicopter with him, and willingly sacrificed himself so that they could. I mean, one guy walked away without a scratch from a helicopter crash. July 2nd was the 19-year anniversary of when he passed. And then 2 days later, July 4th. And this was something they'd done a few times because the people who started CrossFit in Jackson were actually stationed with Flanagan in Afghanistan. So they have done this a few times. It'd been a couple of years since they've done it, but they brought it back this year and invited his sister to be there and to be there for it.
That's awesome. Was there a pretty big crowd out there, or for that day, like to do the workout, or?
I'd say about 30 people for the 8:30 workout, and they had an 8:30 and a 10 o'clock or 10:30 workout. And I imagine, I don't know if 30 is, I don't know what percentage that is of their membership. But for a Friday morning on July 4th, when personally I'm tempted to just sleep in and then wake up and run down to Food Giant and get some meat to grill, and then run to the nearest tent and get some fireworks to blow up after I eat the grilled meat. They went and worked out and did so in honor of this gentleman that definitely deserves some honor for his sacrifice. So yeah, good. If it was, I don't know if they would define it as a large crowd, but they were definitely active.
I feel like 30 people in a group exercise class is a lot, especially on July 4th. Like, because like you said, most people probably don't want to get up on July 4th and do 100 burpees and, muscle ups, or I don't even know what CrossFit does anymore. I haven't done it in a long time, but some pretty intense workouts. What were some of the stuff that you were seeing as you were just sort of observing? Was there some, like, I guess you said a 1.5 mile run? Were there just a bunch of different like body weight exercises and they were all doing it in unison?
Yeah, there were some pull-ups. There was some what's the ones where you take the barbell and you take it from the ground and lift it up above your head? Is that the
power clean?
Power clean, yeah.
Yeah.
I knew it was the Olympic lift, so I always confuse all of the Olympic lifts. I've never covered the Olympics, so
State games though, same thing.
There were no power lifts there, I don't think. But the anyways, sorry. But they did the 1.5 mile run. I'm trying to think what else there was there. They did some stuff that I'd never seen before.
Did they have it all written on a dry erase board, like all written down? Like, oh, that's what I did like, is that you never knew what it was going to be. So you just showed up and there was the workout on the board, and you were either like, okay, like fired up, or like, oh my God. But then you have a choice because you were there, so you just had to do it.
Well, and one of the main and the numbers for these workouts, because they'll do this as often as they can to honor somebody. If you're on social media around Memorial Day and you've got any friends that are involved in CrossFit or any kind of health fitness type stuff, a lot of them will do what they call the Murph, which honors. I forget what the story behind that is, but that honors another person who gave their life in military service on Memorial Day. So there's a lot of that going on throughout the year, and the local officials told me the local chapters of CrossFit get to have their own. Oh, sorry. I thought she was about to let 8 dogs in. She's okay. They'll get to have their own things to honor their local heroes, which is what this was. And numbers are always important. He was 37 years old, so the plan was for a 37-minute workout, which, difficult workout. But if you're going to tell me, hey, we're going to do 5 or 6 things or 7 things or however many things it was, but you're going to be done in 37 minutes, okay, that seems a little more palatable than, hey, we're just going to sit here and do push-ups and sit-ups for the next hour and a half, like some football teams do sometimes.
But I will say this, like, sometimes that can fool you, because you're like, 37 minutes, I can do anything for 37 minutes. But if I remember correctly about CrossFit, it is a straight 37 minutes. Like, you're not resting much. Like, you are going from one thing to another in a circuit, and it is nonstop. And then when you're done, you're done. But man, I feel like just 10 minutes straight of something is challenging, honestly. So
honestly, I have the cardiovascular conditioning of a bottle rocket. So I got winded eating an ice cream sandwich last week. So
It must have been good. I mean, sometimes that happens if you eat a really good dessert.
I was getting really aggressive on that thing. I'm not going to lie.
That's really cool they did that, and I honestly like the idea of on a day like July 4th, a day that traditionally probably people wouldn't want to get up early and do something like that, that a group of people can come together. And the one thing about, like I said before we started recording, I don't really like group exercise classes that much, but I did fight shop for like 3 years straight, boxing, kickboxing, sparring. And you start to, when you work out with a group of people in a really intense way, you start to form a bond with them, right? Like
Hmm.
it's because you're doing something very difficult, but you're doing it with the same people on a consistent basis. And so something like that bonds you together with them, even if you have completely different outlooks on things like outside of that gym. It's very much like a sports team. Like that was
Hmm.
that's what I liked so much about um, Fight Shop, is that like it was like being part of a team again. And you just don't get to do that when you're in your late 30s or early 40s, like in an athletic type of way. You can be on
Unless you're
work
LeBron
teams,
James. Yeah.
unless you're LeBron or Aaron Rodgers. Hey, 42.
Tom Brady.
Yeah, 45. Yeah. So that's cool. And I assume CrossFit's like that too, right? Like there's a lot of strong relationships built through that process. So
Yeah,
cool
definitely.
story.
Uh, and as I was sitting there, I was thinking back to as I was sitting there watching these workouts, and the coaches there are not like in your face Marine drill sergeants or anything like that, but they were kind of saying, "Hey, let's keep it up, keep going, keep going." And I did wonder. I was thinking back to like interviews I've done over the years with like people who played on state championship teams, and then they get together for a reunion like 30 years later or something like that, and they talk about, one thing that really bonded us as a team was in July and August when we were there for fall camp, we were working, we all bonded because we all hated the coach. And I'm like, I wonder if we got something like, like the Milan teams in the 70s and the 90s that won uh, state championships, particularly the ones in the 70s with Coach John Tucker. Like, I've heard some people that said, I hated that guy by the end of fall camp. Now, looking back, they loved the guy. He was like a second father to him. But at the time, he became the common enemy of about 40 or 50 teenage boys out there giving their all for the purple Bulldogs. But I wondered, do they have that kind of hatred for their coaches here? Because they can just walk away and cancel their membership at any time. So
That's right. It's a little bit different. I think that coaching style is probably going the way of the dinosaur at this point in time in 2025, right? Like these like heavy-handed authoritarian types of coaches. Uh, that being said, when I was at USJ, Chris Leonardi was the soccer coach, extremely successful there.
right.
And I would say that there were players for him who in the season might say some of the same things that the Milan players said about Tuck, but they loved him. They
Mm-hmm.
loved playing for him. But in that
Right.
moment, when you're just, you can't drink a Coke during the season, or you're running your tail off over and over and over, you probably don't like him. But then
Mm-hmm.
when it's all done, like you have so much respect for that person. And look, everybody likes to win. So that cures a lot of things, honestly. And both of those coaches won. Uh, Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, similar stories from the college level about, uh, you know, I mean, like you said, these coaches are going away like a dying breed, and one of the last ones was Nick Saban, and like you're sitting there watching him on these documentaries or even in press conferences, and you're like, how can he recruit players to come and play for him and give that kind of effort? But then they see the finished product and the potential of what could be sitting there waiting on them when they're done playing for them, what they can accomplish while they're playing for them. And then for the most part, they all love him, except for maybe the guys from Miami.
Right. The guy
So,
may cry
yeah.
in Miami. We could talk about. We should just do a whole sports show. We tend to just sort of gravitate that way anyway.
Yeah.
But I'll move on to the second story because I was about to
Yeah,
go
that's
off on a
that's
whole
on my
train of
bad.
thought.
That's my bad.
No. I love talking sports. All right. The second story that we want to discuss is JMCSS reopened Melissa's after it was closed as part of Vision 2020 in 2016, and they have made it a STEM innovation center. all right, Melissa STEM Innovation Center. And it's developing its own space for students, and some things that stood out to me in this article. I'll just kind of say a couple things and I'll pass it on to you.
Yeah.
The first thing was that the teachers, that Dr. McSweeney said, what we realized was there's not really a curriculum out there that fits with this type of school. So we had teachers see where the students were, and they created their own curriculum essentially for this. And first of all, as an educator of 20 years, man, that's amazing. Like, I think that is something that I've missed as like curriculums and testing has become so standardized, is there's just not that much freedom to sort of teach the way that you feel is most effective as a teacher, and sort of the way your students can relate to the content. So that was really cool that that's how she decided to handle that. Like, hey,
Right.
this is a brand new program. There's not a lot of packaged stuff out there, so we're just going to create our own and see where it goes. And the second thing is, whenever they were ordering furniture, she said, "I don't really want these school catalogs. I want to look at Home Depot and Lowe's, because this educational environment isn't going to be a traditional students sit in desks and listen to a teacher instruct them. This is going to be completely different." So, with those two things being said, what was your takeaway when you did you go out there and tour it as well, and
Yeah.
interview her there?
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you. I did this interview in April. And I mean, the interview lasted like 2 hours. And one of the reasons that I didn't write the story until July was there was each week it's like, all right, I need to do the story. One, do I have room for it? Two, do I have time to listen to the interview again and then write the story based off of that? And then it was like, oh, I'm going to take vacation in a couple weeks. Let's save it for that week. But so yeah, when she was telling me those two parts, that was where it started to click, because I've been here before April. I had not been inside Melissa's buildings in about 5 or 6 years. There was a time when Eric Jones was the superintendent that he said, okay, we've got people who want to reopen Melissa's. Let's go take a look at the building. And some county commissioners and school board members and media members walked around through there. This was 18 or 19. It was before COVID, obviously, because Jones was gone before COVID. So I hadn't been in there since then. So I knew it was going to look different. Now, I knew that the school was going to be different. I didn't realize how different it was going to be. And you don't know, you cannot fathom how different it's going to be until you sit in there. And you see what they're doing, you see what the students are doing. Because, I mean, but those two things right there are two primary indicators of this isn't what I grew up in Northwest Alabama in the 80s and 90s. And you're hoping it wouldn't be. I mean, because, yes, it does work, but the kids are different, the opportunities are different, technology is different, everything is different. So it really shouldn't be. The foundational principles should never waver, but the methods of the principles maybe should progress somehow. And that's what they're doing. And I didn't even put this in the story. I didn't realize that, like, I wanted to be a part of the story, but I didn't realize it didn't until after I went back and read it. The teacher who was over the Robotics Institute didn't have a lot of experience in robotics. Now, she was the most experienced teacher in her institute, because she had started the robotics program at Denmark.
Perfect.
Move, Angela. Sorry about that. And she had started a robotics program at Denmark, and that program is built up. And so Dr. Teresa McSweeney, who is the Chief Innovation Officer for Jackson-Madison County Schools, and essentially is I guess you'd call her the principal at Melissa's now. She wanted her and her robotics experience to be a part of the institute. But the rest of them, McSweeney wanted specific teachers in the building, and one of them literally was learning the content for a few months and then kind of basing the curriculum based off what she learned. So she's a little bit ahead of the students, but it's not like as far as like what knowledge gained and stuff like that, but it's not like, oh, I've got my master's in biology, I'm about to teach a bunch of sixth graders sixth grade biology, where that knowledge is already there and he or she is just kind of spitting out what she learned over 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years of college education. She's learning. Toyota is coming in and helping. They're sending people from their location out in West Jackson on a weekly basis. They're helping, and then they're essentially just leaving it up to the kids to learn, because that's how it is in the real world. And I know a lot of friends, both you and I have on both ends of the political spectrum, but particularly on the right side of it, are like, we need to have more real world experience for these kids in schools. These kids are getting that real world experience at Melissa's.
And I think that's something that Dr. King has done a really good job with, is providing just different types of options within the district. So you have your STEM center at Melissa's, you have JASA, which is online, you have an academic magnet school, which is Madison, you have early college, which is like there are pretty much options, and it's open enrollment. So, like there are options for every student, literally. I don't know that now with the STEM center, I don't know that there's, any kind of option that we have missing at this point. And STEM is it's a hands-on subject. I know it's science, technology, engineering, math. Sometimes they put art, they make it the STEAM. I'm not sure if that's going to be that, at Melissa's as well, adding some of the arts programs in there. But really the best way to learn, and especially I think as I've sort of seen how students have evolved in the last 20 years, kids learn better when they are kind of figuring things out themselves, and you're guiding them along with it rather than just dictating something to them, if that makes sense. So, I mean, they're used to that stuff. Like, I could give my daughter a phone, and she's got an iPad for college. Like last week, she did all of that stuff on her own completely by her. Of course, she's 18. She should be able to do that. But I feel like it would have taken me twice as long to just do all of that myself. So their brains are wired for that. It's very different than when you and I were in high school, probably. Right. So it's good. I mean, we're evolving with the times. Anything else that stood out about it before we move on to the third story?
No, but I will say this, just to kind of piggyback on something that you mentioned earlier, and we probably don't need to go too far down this rabbit hole. But 2016, 5 schools were shut down. I think 4 have been reopened or repurposed at some level. Because we had JCM, we had Melissa's, we had Nova. Beach Bluff, I think, is the only one that hadn't reopened. I'm trying to think what the other school was. It wasn't West, was it?
Well, West, yes. So West got sold to, I guess, the sheriff's department. And they moved to where the Montessori school moved from Bemis to Tigard. So I guess Tigard the building didn't get shut down, but the school ceased to exist. So Community Montessori moved to Tigard, because that's where I went to junior high, was Tigard. In that building. West sold their building, moved to Bemis, and it's West Bemis. So Tigard, I guess, dissolved as a school, but the building stayed.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, well, and I guess you could say that in this story, Melissa's dissolved as a school, but the building is being used again. And that's really all they wanted. I mean, Jimmy Arnold, the former Melissa's principal, former Southside principal, still county commissioner representing the South, and you can make the argument he's the president of everything in Madison County south of the South Fork of Deer River.
I was going to call him King of the South.
Yeah, the King of the South. I mean, he wanted a school back in Melissa's. And every time I've talked to him about what's going on, he loves it. He loves what's going on. He was about a year ago, give or take a couple of months, when JMCSS and Toyota had a celebration and announcement of their partnership with the Innovation Center. He was there present for that. He was part of all the photos. He was actually smiling You don't see that a lot out of Jimmy Hall, but he was even enjoying talking about it with the media, and sometimes there have been times where he hadn't enjoyed talking to the media, but I mean he loves what's going on there, and so I'm glad for him. I'm glad for all the people in Melissa's that they've got something they can say, hey, this is ours, and we are the first ones to do it. All of y'all are copying what, or probably eventually going to be copying what's going on here. You're welcome.
That's right. It's good. It's good to be on the front lines and stuff. One more tidbit of James CSS news. I just saw it yesterday when I drove by. They're laying the turf. The turf is being
the
laid.
turf's actually going down.
It looks great. Like I drove past it coming back from Nashville yesterday, and yeah, it's looking good. So anyway, I'm sure we'll be talking about that at some point down the line.
I'll see if I can get over there.
Yeah, looks good. All right, third story. Jackson Police Chief Tom Corley is scheduled to receive a state honor, and I'm going to get this exactly right so I don't mess it up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe I'm not, because I thought it was on the front page, but it's not.
No, it's not on the front. It was inside.
Do you remember what it was called? Do you remember what the award was called? As I'm flipping through, here it is: Excellence in Police Services Award.
There we go.
And as I was reading this, this is something that two things I've noticed since Tom Corley has been chief of police. And this isn't to say that this wasn't the case before. I just may not have been paying attention. But two things I've noticed. One, a more active social media presence. And I think that's important in this day and time. And I think it ties into something that was highlighted in the article, focus on community policing. And that's sort of been a term that's been used a lot. And I think when Sheriff Weiser was chief, he also used that philosophy of community policing. I believe. I don't want to be mistaken here, but I'm pretty sure I heard it before Corley. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's really, I think, the best practice, at least collectively, it seems to be the best practice of law enforcement, is to be visible, active, and building relationships within the communities they patrol. Because somehow, and look, not without good reason, because there were things that happened between law enforcement and civilians that obviously needed to be prosecuted, addressed, all of those things. But at some point, I think the public lost trust in law enforcement in a lot of the similar fashion that part of the public lost trust in public education system too. I love to connect those two things, because even though I think sometimes different sides of the aisle choose to attack one of those, I think it's sort of like the other side of the same coin. The things that they complain about on both sides tend to be sort of like this. They end up falling on teachers and patrol officers, which sometimes is unfair, I think.
Right.
So getting out there and being visible and building relationships is the way to go. And it seemed like that's sort of the impetus for awarding Chief Corley with that, is that public presence of JPD out in the community.
Yeah, I imagine that's got a lot to do with it. I mean, because, just to be totally upfront and to have a real conversation, there's a lot of people who are unhappy who think that law enforcement could be doing a better job in the city of Jackson. Some days I might agree with that sentiment, but for the most part, and I credit this to me me having a perspective because of my job that not a lot of the 69,000 residents of Jackson get to have of this. I get to see, one, how they're dealing with it, what they're doing to deal with it, and kind of I get to hear some of the conversations of what's in their mindset as they're discussing how to handle situations. And one of the things that they are doing is they're making sure to be adaptable. I mean, they did a 5-year plan, released it earlier this year. That 5-year plan had an element of, hey, 69,000 residents, and maybe some of y'all who follow us on social media but don't live here, but you come here to shop or work, or you just want to hear your voice heard, even though you have nothing to do with the situation. That plan was put together with some of the response from a survey or a couple of surveys that were put out to the public to be like, hey, what is it that you want us to do? What are we failing at that you want us to do better at? What are we doing okay that we can still continue to do better? And, I mean, at the end of the day, they are essentially 200 officers in uniform, or some not in uniform, trying to make sure that this town of 69,000 residents, which that number can grow up to over 100,000 people between the hours of 9 and 5, Monday through Friday, grows to like 300,000 right before school starts and right before Christmas on Saturdays. Stay safe and secure and orderly. And there's going to be times there where it's kind of hard to make sure that happens, particularly when there are people who just don't give a flip about law and order security. They just want to do what they want to do for the reasons they want to do it, and they're going to go do it. Stop me if you can. And usually they're going to they got to stop them after they do it. But yeah, like you said, they're doing their jobs, but they're being more public about it. And, there's still a segment of citizens out there that think they're being secretive with certain things they're doing. And you know what? They probably should be, because if you and I are leading Jackson Police, or we're leading investigations for Jackson Police, we don't want everyone knowing what we're investigating, because we don't want people getting involved with witnesses and evidence and all this other stuff. So there needs to be a healthy lack of trust of the law enforcement, but they're doing their best to make sure that they are as trustworthy as possible.
Right.
And this award gives Corley credit for trying to get that done in Jackson.
Yeah. I'm gonna pivot real quick, because I know we were going to talk about Spring Creek, but I think this is more important, and I'd forgotten to listen to the rundown, so I don't want to put you on the spot. But you had an article in last week's paper that talked about the citizens who were on budget committees or certain committees. Okay, so I would rather talk about that, because I don't know that the general public knows that. So
yeah. And we talked about Spring Creek last week too, when we were talking about July 4th. That's right.
We did. Yeah. So sorry, no hate to Spring Creek, but we have more important matters to discuss on this episode than your 4th of July parade. Sorry. All right. So I know the county commission budget committee, they have Greg Parsons, who's his name's
Marcus Love.
Marcus Love, right? Is that just the only two?
Yeah, those are the only 2 out of 7.
Do other, like the city council, do they have citizens on their committees as well? School board, I know they well, Education Vision, maybe? Is that
so? In the last couple of years, JMCSS have changed how they do their committees, because 1, they've added some committees. 2, 5-6 years ago, before Dr. King took over, their committees were, all right, we need a budget committee. Let's find 5 out of the 9 on the board and put them on this budget committee. Whereas, and they did the same with long range planning, except it was 3 and and other committees. Now it's the chairman, which is now Harvey Walden. Before it was Pete Johnson, in unison with Marlon King. They there are conversations held with those board members. What are your interests? What's your background? What committees do you serve on best? And they only put 1 or 2 board members on those committees, and the rest of the committees are filled by members of the leadership team or members of JMCSS workforce, and county commissioners. There's 2 county commissioners on the budget committee for JMCSS, but no members of the public.
Who are the
That's why
two
they
mem-
want.
who are the two commissioners on the budget committee for JMCSS?
Um, mm, Last year was Tony Black and Richard Watson.
Okay.
I think Watson is still on it. I think Black came off. He's on the athletics committee this year. So I think I don't. That's totally slipped my mind. I want to say Claudel Brown, but I could be wrong. And I'm not sure if this is. No one's ever said this is what we try to do, but particularly on budget, it's usually one Republican, one Democrat.
Yeah.
So I think that Claudel is the Democrat on the budget committee, and somebody please let me know if I'm wrong on that, or I'll go to the budget committee meeting this month to find out. Mike Bryant was there this past month, but I think he's on personnel because personnel and budget were meeting together. But I mean, and in some committees, members of the community are on there. Budget's not one of them. But last year, I was a member of the athletics committee.
Right.
And then coming into this year, that's about to wrap up. I was missing a lot of meetings, so I said, "Hey, why don't you take me out?" Coach Joe Holloway, who's a personality on one of the local radio stations and has been doing sports talk radio around here on some shape, form, or fashion. Former co-host of mine. He's been doing it for like 90 years. After a 70-year career of coaching,
160 years old,
and that's after all of his education. But he's on the committee now with Tony Black, Jason Compton, and Andre Darnell are the two board members that are on that committee. Anyways, all that to say, Jackson-Madison County Schools was not as much a part of this article as the City Council and County Commission. But the City Council Budget Committee has been a little more fluid here for the last year or so. They've got 7 members. 3 are City Council members. And for the last 2 years, it's been Frank McMean as the chair with Johnny Dodd and Julie Holt on the committee. And then there have been 4 lay people there. And then Mayor Conger and whoever the city recorder is that month will be there at the meetings as well because they're the ones reporting to the committee. They've been trying to figure out what's made it so fluid is they've been trying to figure out the schedule for when the committee can meet when as many committee members as possible can be there. And they thought that meeting on Monday at 10 o'clock, the last Monday of the month at 10 o'clock, or the 4th Monday of the month at 10 o'clock, was going to work for the last 3 months. The only citizen that's been able to be there is Jack Mathis from Alexander Thompson and Arnold. So he was the one I got a couple of quotes from him for the story for the city's part of the story. So I think they're going to revisit that and have a little more stability on the city's committee.
Who are the 3 other community members? Do you know? I'm just putting you on the spot, left and right.
Yeah. I really wish you'd stop that. But Lynn Henning, not the longtime HR director for the city, but another. I think she's a banker. Marcus Love, I think, was on there a couple of years ago. Another gentleman, Ron Tharp, who is with one of the banks around here. He's been on there in the past. Yeah, I was thinking Leaders. Yeah,
I think so.
Apologies if it's not Leaders. And Paul Taylor was on it after he came off I think he was on it when he was on city council. And then when he did run for re-election, Mayor Conger said, "Hey, would you stay on budget committee?" And I think he did that for a year.
He should probably come back.
I would probably actually positively write about that in a column if that were to happen.
Okay, so Paul, if you're watching this, reach out to somebody, come back to the budget committee.
Yeah.
I think they need your help. I do. I just think they need this help. So to wrap this part up, I guess, and this is probably obvious, the reason you want to have community members on these committees is to get input from the actual community as to what's going on, because I'm sure there can be a disconnect when you're, I don't say making laws, but when you are making these decisions that will affect the community, sometimes, perspective is limited, I guess. So you want to get as many people, not as possible, but, you know, as much representation for the community as you can in situations.
Well,
like
not
that.
only that, but I mean, there's an accountability proponent to that, or component to that too. Do I want to get? You know what? I'm just going to go get into this. One thing that really impressed me about both Marcus and Greg with the county commission is every so often there's going to be conversations that happen during those committees that involve people that disagree on a subject. Sorry, I got a notification that my battery's at 20%. So they may get into conversation that's where the conversation's getting personal for a minute. Or they may start referencing stuff that has little to do with that meeting at the time. A couple of months ago, when the budget committee was discussing with Mayor Massey about the pay for the HR director / deputy mayor, that conversation got to a point between Massey and Gary Deaton, where Parsons finally had to say, y'all, this is getting to a point where we're talking about stuff that we're getting into the whole politics of stuff. And Marcus and I have no idea what y'all are talking about. And their purpose there is just to essentially make sure that, like, there's no feelings involved, there's no agendas involved. They're just making sure that, to put it the way Marcus put it, that the maths. And to make sure that the numbers line up and they're all kosher, and that that the citizens and the county's best interests are being carried out. Because if we want to go worst case scenario with this, let's go ahead and go worst case scenario for a minute. There are 7 members of that committee. If you take out Parsons and Love, you've got 5 Republican commissioners who are on that committee. All they got to do is just find 2 out of the other 12 to put Republican commissioners on that committee, and they can literally do anything that they wanted with that money. I'm not saying they would, because I honestly don't think that they would. But if you had 7 people, or just 4 people, a majority, who just wanted to do whatever they wanted to do with it, with the county's money, and be willing to deal with the consequences at election time in 4 years, they could do that. But now that you've got 2 people who are there representing the public's interest, I mean, do they agree or politically with a lot of the people on that committee? I'd be more surprised if I heard no than yes. But at the same time, Kevin Hicks, who is a member of the committee, he brought a proposal to the committee a few months ago saying, hey, let's spend $50,000 on new basketball goals for practices for JCM's gym. Why do we want to do that? Because JCM's gym is brand new, so they shouldn't need new goals for practice just yet. Well, Lane needs some new practice goals, so maybe we could give the old ones from JCM to Lane, and then we're spending $50,000 on the school, but we're not spending $50,000 on Lane. And pretty much everybody in the room is like, we're not doing that.
Right.
But if you had 3 other commissioners who said, yeah, that's a good idea, let's do that, that would not, according to everybody except Kevin Hicks, that would not be the best use of $50,000 that I spent my hard-earned money buying groceries at Walmart to pay for that $50,000.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and I like that. I like that. I guess I didn't think about that. I think I was more thinking about let's get a variety of perspectives from the community. But you're right. The accountability aspect is super important, especially, and like you said, you don't personally believe that if it was a 7-member Republican, or let's just say, for argument's sake, Democrat, because at some point that's going to flip. It may not be our lifetime, but at some
Eventually, the
point it
pendulum will
will.
swing. Yes.
It will. And you don't want to have consolidated power of any party, especially one of a commission that regularly caucuses, because that's when a lot of the decisions get made and then they just get passed on there. So yes, you have this unhealthy consolidation of power. So yes, I think community members are a necessity on committees like that. And hey man, I doubt they get paid anything, and if they do, it's probably not nearly what their time is worth for doing that. So hats off to them for being willing to serve on those.
I should have asked that, but I didn't. But I've never seen a line item in the budget. This is how much we're giving Marcus and Greg.
They probably get a gift card to Texas Roadhouse or something at Christmas.
They get a free carpet from Deaton's outlet.
Some hard, yeah. He does wood flooring now, I believe, too.
He does.
Yeah. All right. Last thing, new district alignments for local high school sports. Apparently, and I didn't realize this, and I skimmed the article before we started recording. What local teams will be most affected by this? The one thing that did stand out to me is USJ dropping back to Single A in Division II. I did not realize that was happening, and also wonder how that might shift with vouchers coming down the pike too.
Wow, way to make it political, Gabe.
Well, I'm just saying they have a. Now that being said, I don't want to make it political. I have a feeling that the majority of people who use these vouchers are probably already in private school anyway. So it may not change their enrollment all that much. But I'm just wondering if it will and what will happen in that case.
If it does, apparently USJ is right at the dividing line between Single A and Double A in Division II, because they were Double A for the last 2 years, and they're dropping back down. I don't think it'll have that big of an effect either. When it comes to athletics, my wonder is, will they take the 7,000, or will somebody take the access to that 7,000 for 20,000 kids and say, hey, we should connect this person with the voucher program, and maybe he'll come up with some NIL, and maybe hook a parent up with a job, because now that's legal, because it's not like it hadn't been happening already, at least in Memphis, Nashville, Knoxville, and Chattanooga at the private schools.
Also Jackson.
I'm not going to say no. I'm just going to say if it is, they're doing a good job of hiding it, because I've tried to expose it.
I know it happened when I was there. Like, this was 20 years ago, but it is what it is.
I'm not going to give any names. I'm not even going to give a school. But there was one time where I thought I was able to write the story, but I wasn't. They did a good job crossing T's and dotting I's. Anyways, but yeah, USJ is moving down to Single A, which means they're going to be back. Those games with TCA and Jackson Christian are going to be district games now. So yeah, that's going to add to those games. Those games are already big. But 2 years ago, when Jackson Christian beat USJ in football 45-7, and then last year when USJ got them back, I think 34-14 or something like that. That game's going to matter more for playoffs now, and so that's going to be fun to watch. There's also, that's just going to add, as if any of these rivalries needed more fuel to them. That's just going to add more fuel to it. And with all due respect to the other two, USJ has been around longer. USJ has enjoyed more success, although Jackson Christian is the only one of the three to win a football state championship. But Jackson or USJ has made it to the finals more than the other two combined. So they're usually the ones that they want to knock off. And so this is going to add even more motivation to knock them off. That's the biggest change when it comes to football and really all sports. Because it's getting the three together. As far as football goes, North Side and South Side's region is they're in the same region that they were. They're just getting a couple of teams added to it. Crockett County and Dyer County are being added to Lexington, Hardin, Chester, and South Gibson. So that'll be fun. Get to hang out with my old buddy Kevin Ward out of Crockett County and his whole coaching staff. And also get to go to Crockett County and have you been to that? Have you been to their stadium since they redone their stadium?
It's nice. I attended the graduation there this year, and it's really nice. It is the school board, which I feel like Pick Sweep might have paid for that because they had a big old ad on there. But man, it looks really good. It looks the stadium looks great. And that's a make it all about JC. I mean, that gets me really excited for whatever's going to be at Hub City Central. I don't know if I don't know what all the extra stuff's going to look like, but just the turf field alone, like just that by itself adds so much like aesthetic appeal to a field or a stadium,
Of course. And you think about an area, JCM is going to be right in the middle of a metropolitan area. Crockett County on a Friday night when they're hosting a home game, you're out in the middle of the country.
Cornfield.
It's dark out there, and all of a sudden there's just this big bright stadium just out there in the middle of nowhere. It's just like, what in the world, y'all?
But it's really it looks really good. Milan, same way. I went to the JCM Milan game this past fall at Milan, and man, like it looked really, really good as well. Like the stadium did. I was pleasantly surprised and impressed.
Yeah, they did a great job when they redid theirs 4 years ago, maybe, I think is when they did it. They did a good job when they redid theirs. And speaking of JCM, their region, they're losing Riverside. Riverside gets moved over to a Middle Tennessee region, but they get two schools that are moving up from single A, one of them being Union City. And last year, Halls wasn't a bad team. Right. So this competitive region that JCM was in last year, where they literally going into week 10 out of an 11-week season, they had the potential, if they went 0-2 in those final 2 weeks, to miss the playoffs and finish sixth in the region, to finishing second and hosting a playoff game. I think this region is going to stay just as competitive, maybe even more, because Union City is going to get in there with Peabody. They're going to get in there with Milan. They're going to get in there with JCM, Adamsville, and I think Camden. Did they lose Camden? I think. Well, yeah, if they lost Riverside, surely they lost Camden too.
Huntington's still there, yeah.
Yes, Huntington. I knew I was forgetting somebody. So you get Union City, Trenton, Milan, Huntington, and JCM all in the same region, and then if Adamsville is still able to be competitive, if Halls is still able to be competitive, God help these young men trying to go through that schedule where they're beating each other up every week in September and October. And then, of course,
like
Liberty. SEC. Yeah.
Like the SEC.
And you remember I remember one year when the SEC West had Alabama. It was back during the BCS days. Alabama and LSU were 1 and 2, and then Arkansas was number 3 1 week. Mississippi State wasn't far behind because they still had Dan Mullen at the time. They might have still had Dak Prescott at the time. And then Ole Miss wasn't horrible. Auburn, whatever, Roll Tide. But every week was just a grind. And you're like, okay, whoever comes out of this is going to be battle tested, but also at the same time, they're going to be battle beaten. But Riverside won state 2 years ago. Was it Milan who came out of this one?
Yeah, Milan, because they beat us. They beat JCM. Was it the? I don't think it was the game before state. It may.
No, y'all made it
It's
to
the
the
game
second
before.
round.
That's right. Made it second round.
Yeah,
Because we beat Summertown first, and then had to go to Milan, and Milan beat us. But it was close.
and then Milan beat Huntington in the quarterfinals,
Yep.
and then they won the semifinals, and they lost in Chattanooga. That's what it was.
That's what. Yep. Yes, I mean you're right. Whoever comes out of this region, I mean, at least the last 2 years, have gone all the way to state. So the finals. I mean, it'll be good. Look. You know, when we did the Shields report, Brandon, you know how I would get exasperated.
You were angry at me
when we would interview coaches in January, but I'm starting to get excited now. I don't know.
Well, you should be excited in January to talk to new football, particularly when West Tennessee had 27 new football coaches that off season.
It was a lot of breaking news, man. It was like I couldn't keep up. I could not keep up with all the musical chairs of coaching football. So.
Oh yeah.
All right, what you got this week? July's a slow month with meetings and such. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'm catching up. Obviously, I missed the school board meeting last week, so going to catch up on that and the charter vote and some other stuff coming out of that. Catching up on football. Javante Smith at Northside committing to Tennessee. Congratulations to him. Going to try to interview him this week and have a little bit more on that. So yeah, I mean it's July. We're hitting a lull, but the lull is not that low.
Right.
So
all right, man.
It's plenty of stuff going on.
Well, I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day. Get back in the groove of work after your vacation, and I'm about to go do the same.
All right. Thanks for talking to me. All of y'all, thanks for listening.
See ya.
See ya.